We begin our mindfulness exercise with breath as the primary object of awareness. I have arranged a time and place where I will not be disturbed. I sit in a comfortable but attentive posture, sitting up without leaning back for support, as much as comfortable for me. I sit in a dignified posture with my head balanced on my shoulders and my arms and hands resting in a comfortable position. This is a time for me to switch from my normal mode of doing, moving, and reacting to one of simply being. I allow myself to be attentive to what is happening within my own awareness, right here and right now. As I sit, I simply notice the sensations of my breath. I observe how my abdomen moves with each in-breath and out-breath. The movement of air through my nostrils and the slight movement of my chest and shoulders. I bring my awareness to whichever part of my body that feels the most vivid during my breathing, whether in my belly, my chest, shoulders, or the movement of air through my nostrils. I notice the entire cycle of my breath, from the movement of air coming in, filling my lungs, extending my abdomen slightly, to the movement of air going out. I become aware of the pause, the stopping point between my in-breath and out-breath, and between my out-breath and my next in-breath. It's all one continuous movement, even through the changing of direction. I simply notice where that pause is, seeing how fully I can be aware of my entire cycle. I recognize that each part of the cycle is different from the other, that this breath is different from the last, and that each breath is absolutely unique in its own way if I pay attention. I notice that my attention from time to time shifts away from my breath. My mind may wander into fantasies, memories, thoughts of the day, worries, or things I need to do. When I notice that this has happened, I gently but firmly bring my awareness back to the sensations of breathing, the actual physical sensations of my breath as it moves through my body, that part of my body that I thought was most vivid, and the part of the breath cycle that was also most vivid. I become aware of where my mind has gone and then gently shift my awareness back to my breath without judgment, without opinions. I notice my tendency to want to control my breathing. Instead of doing that, I let the quality of my attention be light and easy, simply observing and noticing, just as if I were floating on a gently undulating sea, rising with one wave and falling with the next. I do not control the duration of the wave or the depth between the waves. I simply ride them. I gently return my awareness to the sensations of breathing. I may also notice sounds in addition to my breath, the sounds of traffic, movement, or something else in my surroundings. I observe how my attention moves toward these sounds, staying with them just long enough to notice their qualities. I recognize sound as vibration, tone, volume, or intensity. I become aware of my mind's tendency to label sound, calling it traffic, voices, or music, or something else. Instead of focusing on labels, I try to connect with the actual experience of sound as it reaches my eardrums, its qualities, pitch, rhythm, or intensity. If I notice that I have become absorbed in sound, I gently bring my awareness back to my breath. I let my breath be my anchor of awareness, knowing that each time my attention drifts elsewhere, I can always return to my breath without judgment or frustration. I acknowledge when my attention has wandered and simply come back to my breath. I notice my tendency to have opinions about things, liking how this exercise is going, disliking something about it, or finding it uncomfortable, or maybe it's very comfortable. I recognize that even this can be an object of awareness. I notice how often I have an opinion about my experience. I recognize that's my liking mind. It enjoys this. Or that's my critical mind. It wants things to be different. I acknowledge these thoughts without acting on them, building my capacity to notice liking or disliking without needing to change anything. And I recognize how freeing that can be. As I observe my thoughts and reactions, I return my awareness to the physical sensations of my breath, wherever they feel most vivid, riding the entire cycle, one breath after another. I may also notice body sensations, achiness, discomfort, tension. When I become aware of these sensations, I realize that I have options for how to respond. One option is to shift my position if the sensation can be alleviated. But before I do, I first bring full awareness to the sensation itself, noticing exactly where the tension or discomfort is. Then, with intention, I mindfully make any necessary adjustments. Another option is to simply observe the sensation with curiosity without immediately reacting to it. I explore the sensation fully, its intensity, its location, how I experience it in this moment. I notice whether it feels like tension, tightness, throbbing, pulling, tingling, or something else. I recognize that I can stay with this sensation for just a moment longer, experiencing it as pure sensation, rather than labeling it as discomfort or pain. And I notice how it changes over time without needing to react. If my attention keeps returning to an area of intense sensation, I remember that I have two choices. I can mindfully adjust my position, forming a clear intention before moving, or I can remain with the sensation, exploring it with curiosity. I ask myself, how big is it? How long does it last? What quality does it have? How is it changing? No matter where my mind goes, whether to thoughts of liking or disliking, perceptions, sounds, feelings of peace or sadness, frustration or anticipation, I simply observe them as raw thought forms. I bring awareness back to my breath. And I become curious about my breath, noticing that no two breaths are exactly the same. I see if it is possible to have a friendly attitude toward whatever arises in my awareness. When my mind wanders into a fantasy, thought, judgment, worry, sensation, or sound, I simply acknowledge it with kindness and return to my breath. I recognize that the entire cycle of awareness is valuable, both the moments when I focus on my breath and the moments when my mind drifts elsewhere and returns. I have nothing to do but ride the waves of my breath. I see if it is possible to recognize those moments when my awareness has gone somewhere else. I notice a flicker of attention as I realize my focus has shifted, and in that moment, I celebrate it. I congratulate myself for noticing. I recognize this as a moment of awareness. I acknowledge myself for realizing my mind had wandered, and I gently bring my attention back to my breath in a friendly and non-judgmental way. And as this exercise comes to an end, I recognize I have spent this time intentionally aware of my moment-to-moment experience. I have nourished and strengthened my ability to be present with whatever arises. I have expanded my capacity to open my senses to the vividness and aliveness of the present moment. I have deepened my ability to be curious, open, and accepting of whatever presents itself without judgment. And when I'm ready, eyes to let in some light if they have been closed. I permit myself to shift or stretch in any way that feels comfortable. As this exercise comes to completion.